Why is it important that every student is exposed to many forms of literacy?
I think it's really important that students are exposed to different forms of literacy because all of us learn differently. So the more we're exposed to, the more we can kind of tap into, first of all, things that we never knew existed, but also things that can connect with how we learn. So some people, might learn more with a digital platform. Some people might learn more with a hands-on. Some people with literacy actually acting things out. So as far as English is concerned, it's nice to kind of have offerings of all things so students can thrive and succeed, and also to be exposed to things that they might not even known they've had a gift or kind of a leaning towards. So I think that's one of our goals in the English department.
And as an English teacher, how have you tried to incorporate different forms of literacy into your lessons, and has it shown improvement in the students?
Yeah, so there's lots of different literacy platforms that we try. There's some of the traditional senses with English where, we might have the novel, or we might do something online. We might do a play. We might do a graphic novel. There might be a choice unit where there's some sort of multi-genre piece to it, so that there are different mediums that are all being kind of tied together. There's also a platform of discussion. That's another form of literacy, so Socratics, or just discussions, or small group things. So we try to incorporate as many as we can. Obviously, there's confines sometimes in the classroom of how many you can do, and to what extent you can kind of operate. But my hope is that students will find success in lots of different places, because our goal is to get people to get students to be able to express themselves, and there's lots of different ways to do that. There can be things in a digital platform, in a written platform, in a oral kind of tradition, and technology, and also the physical tactility of other things can get you there.
Do you think giving students more choice in certain projects would lead to better grades?
It it has been proven to lead to better grades in some extent, because people or students find more interest a lot of the time. Choice is always something that drives kind of passion and authenticity, and it makes a learning experience more organic if it can be. We have a mantra in my class we read early on from the Ten Commandments from Steve and Frank, that says, if for some reason, there's another way that you can kind of think up doing one of your assignments, especially a writing assignment, you can kind of turn it into something else, so as long as the learning goals are the same. So we do have some choice units in the 9th grade honors classes, and most students really thrive in there because they can kind of show multimodal things. They can use writing, and they can also use art, they can use music, they can do a lot of different things that showcase a lot more of their talents, and then of course maybe learn a different way. So the grade is one outcome. I think if people are more interested in what they're working on, that drives people to work harder and think deeper. But I also think there's another measure of success, which is that there's critical thinking and a lot of synthesis and a lot of growth to see that it's not just the grade, it's actually the process and the understanding of something more deeply.
So do you think that students would take advantage of this if they were given more choices, or would it lead to a system where they would choose the easiest option, or they might choose something where they would struggle more, or maybe one where their friends are all doing it so they would also do it?
I think all of those are realistic possibilities of outcomes. I think given the student and the level of interest and the maturity and the independence of the individual, some students really thrive in just kind of taking something and running with it. And so there are actually no boundaries to that. They actually are doing sometimes more than you're asking because they get so invested in something that their learning kind of just grows naturally. I've also had students, because we're all, we're all learning and growing, that depending on what else is going on in your life, that you might have to decide to do something with friends, or maybe you're taking the easy route because this isn't necessarily something that is of high interest to you, and that doesn't mean that it just may be that English isn't your favorite thing or whatnot. But my hope is that there's less of that. That even if students will take a less challenging route, that there's still more authenticity to that. So I think as a teacher, you have to always strive for that, because we sometimes can ask for assignments that are just encourage people to take the easy way out sometimes, papers that or like certain, I suppose, process things that we've been asking year after year after year. How can we kind of reinvent it? How can we make it new, and see that the students will find kind of value in that. So I've also had students too that it's difficult to make choices because they like to be told exactly what to follow. So that's also something to explore, and it all depends on what type of personality you are. Some people like very strict guidelines. They don't necessarily like a lot of choice. They also like tell me what to do, tell me how to get the grade. So that's also important for other people, because they can learn a different value, set of skill sets. Maybe it's to trust their own voice, trust their own instinct, lean into something that they want to do, and be able to kind of defend and explore that instead of the teacher just kind of giving all the guidelines. That really shows a lot of movement and independence, which hopefully, in different levels of your schooling, students get all of those experiences.
Do you think it would benefit students if English classes were more split into different, more options, similar to creative writing, but with like other forms of literacy?
Yes, in some ways, because the state standards require that certain things are taught. Sometimes that can be limiting, as far as how many classes a student decides to take and what can be taught in it. We've always dreamed as an English department there'd be more elective classes, so that if students could still satisfy their requirements, but also maybe read like a contemporary fiction piece, or women's lit, or some other classes that could also incorporate high interest, but maybe a little bit more specialized, so that students could gravitate towards those. Creative writing is a great class. Thankfully, it's been very well attended, and students are enthusiastic to sign up. I think we used to offer film study. There's a lot of things that kind of ebbed and flowed in my experience here, and I know for certain reasons that certain things we can't house a ton of different options, but it would be nice to have a few more classes like that. I agree.
Do you think that forcing certain projects on students might dissuade them from enjoying the better parts of the class if they don't enjoy the projects?
Yeah, so enjoying things is obviously something that is important, and so sometimes if a student has some sort of access or interest already, it can help engage in the learning, which can make the experience even more vibrant. So that's great. The other side of learning is to also be pushed out of your comfort zone a little bit. So I may think, of a project as something that helps a student grow. I always say that I don't want my students to be the same students they were when they first started as to when they left. So sometimes, and this doesn't mean it always works when assignments are given. That certain, if the teacher's engaged and the learning is nurtured, then hopefully if there is a nudge outside of like what exactly makes you feel good or what exactly comes naturally, sometimes that can feel like an uncomfortable place, but it can also be a place of growth. So if a student is open-minded enough to kind of just say, okay, I'm learning here, everything doesn't have to be perfect, I don't have to like everything, but it does buy into the idea that there is going to be something gained from this process. This is of course in a broad spectrum, then I think both can coexist. Obviously, teachers want to do things of kids with high interest, and they also want to push a little bit out of the comfort zone. So how do you negotiate that? Because as a student, you're not always, going to be able to pick everything you like. So having that kind of dress rehearsal of things that maybe aren't your first choice, that can be a different learning experience. You can tell yourself, I can get through it. I can, I'm really proud of myself because I actually did follow through on this, even though it was really difficult. So there could be other learning or growth coming from that literacy as well.
Have you ever noticed students more engaged with lessons if the lessons were more fun?
Oh, for sure. Like right now in creative writing, while we're doing this interview, they're next door practicing their spoken word poems. We've got microphones out, we've got amplifiers out. The room is turned into like a stage. So, the students are laughing and still on task and doing things and sharing things and all of that stuff I just talked about with like even still working outside of your comfort zone. But it is nice to have a little, extra razzle dazzle, a little extra, playfulness and engagement. So my hope is that I can, there's a little bit of all of that in my classes. Sometimes it's very traditional, and then sometimes it can be very playful and engaging and fun, and learning still happening in both of those.
All right, that was it.
All right, thank you.